Welcome to the Divine Soul Journey Evolved podcast, your space for all things awakening, healing, and consciousness shifting. I'm Stephanie Jameson, psychic medium, author, spiritual, and heart-based business mentor, here to help guide you through the incredible, sometimes wild, yet always transformative journey of spiritual evolution. Together, we'll dive deep into thought-provoking conversations, perspective-shifting insights, heart-awakening moments, and reflect on conscious relationship growth. This podcast is designed to be a safe space for awakening and evolving souls, a place to inspire, motivate, encourage, and let's be real, at times may even trigger you into the next version of who it is that you're being invited to become. If you're feeling the call to step into your highest self and embrace the magic of some serious transformation, you're in the right place. Because soul growth and evolution is meant to be beautiful, empowering, and yes, despite how it may feel at times, even fun. So take a deep breath, set the intention to open your heart, and let's dive in. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here with you. Thank you very much.
I am so excited to talk about this subject. I know you and I have been trying to connect for a little while now, and I definitely believe in divine timing. And, with everything that I do and what I feel like I'm here to, do on my mission, I feel like this couldn't be a more perfect bridge the gap type conversation. Today, we're talking about Christ oil and the secret secretion.
Yes, great. It's
I-
such a good subject to talk about.
It is.
It's
It
great
is.
to- Yes, because it's
Yeah.
a subject that people aren't aware of. They haven't heard of it. They're really surprised when they hear about it, but at the same time, they find it so beautiful and inviting to talk about that.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, it's great to be here and talk about it in this way of
It
it being called the Christ oil.
Yeah, and it feels so in alignment with the awakening that's happening and where we're evolving as individuals and as a collective. I feel like this is something that they should have taught us in school. This is
Yes.
something that we should all know and be aware of. Before we get into it, I feel like it's important to introduce yourself, obviously, here. And then I kind of want to open up a little bit and talk about like my experience when it came to the meditation process as well and what happened in that regard. I know we kind of talked on that a little bit when we first met, but
I would
who
love
are
to do.
you?
Yeah.
Yes, who are you? What have you been doing? I know you've been doing this for a while. Your mother was a healer as well. Healing genes just are in your family. Let's go ahead and dive in here.
Thank you. So I have been working in osteopathy and healing within osteopathy for 28 years, and my training was 4 years before that. I live in the UK, but I have patients that fly in literally from all over the world to see me for my approach, which is unique because I bring in the spiritual aspect to osteopathy, or I rather that I embrace that within my practice. And that's something that I've developed over a number of recent years. And I'm an author, I've published 2 books, and I also use biofrequency healing. So I now use a technology that enables me to help people heal worldwide without putting my hands on them. And I decided on this journey when I was 13 because my mum had raised me in natural medicine, and I knew I wanted to do something similar to my mum because I could see how many people's lives she was changing, and I really felt that I wanted to do the same thing. But equally, I wanted to go to university, and I wanted that university lifestyle because I was so young making that decision. And osteopathy was what I chose. It was a 4 year degree. And osteopathy actually is spiritual, but the spiritual side is not taught at university. It's very structural. And so I've developed the spiritual side since graduating when I was 22 in
Mm.
1997.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
powerful. Did you happen to go through any kind of a catalyst or anything like that that made you want to embody the spiritual aspect a little bit more?
Yes, I think I've been through traumatic events which have allowed me to question why and what was happening, why was it happening, and that deepened my faith. And I asked myself lots of questions on life and my religion. I was raised Catholic, but I started to want to know more about my spiritual connection with God. And I would say that's where it began, me wanting to understand my relationship rather than the relationship through the church, because I was raised in the Catholic faith, went to Catholic school. Um, but that wasn't enough. I wanted to know more. It was like I was really hungry for it. And so I started to deepen my understanding. Then I started to introduce prayer into my work, but the patients weren't aware of that. I would be saying prayers within my mind when I was treating. And I continued to do this, and miracles were happening. So a response to treatment was very much quicker. And I couldn't explain it apart from it was prayer.
Hmm. I totally understand that. I totally get that. It's really interesting when we invite spirit in to our businesses. Obviously, I have a heart-based business. You have a heart-based business. It's wild how they become our teammates
Yes.
and
That's so
encourage,
true.
yeah, encourage just, I feel like I see miracles so often in what I do. And I know you do too. You were just saying that. It's wild the way that they come in and bring people our way. And then the way that the healing takes place, like the mind couldn't make that up. Like it's, you can't
No,
even write this stuff if you tried.
it's beyond words.
Hmm.
It's so hard to explain it because it is
Hmm.
beyond putting a word to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
I was having this conversation yesterday in my clinic with my patients. That's why this is so timely, because I talk about the Christ consciousness with patients. But yesterday, when I was working with patients in London, it felt like there was the presence of the Holy Spirit, that God was working in some way with both of us, with the patient and myself. There was a third, it was like a third person in the room, because
Hmm.
there was no way that I could have achieved what I was achieving just with myself doing what I know to do. It was just
Yeah.
amazing. Like, and I
Yeah.
said, there's a third person here.
Yeah. The
We're on
energy was
the
working
right.
through you.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then the patient is having a response, like a tingling all over their body, like a rush of tingling from head to toe, or like a shaking of the body, like a tremor. And
That
then
sounds a, oh, go ahead.
they also know that they have been brought by the Holy Spirit. They know that God has brought them on that path to have that session with me in that treatment room.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
sounds a lot like, there's so many different types of modalities, and this is just an additional modality out there. And I always encourage people to find the modality that works best for them, or if, they're listening to this, there are no coincidences. But it sounds a
no,
lot like what people experience when they have Reiki treatments, somatic healing sessions, but you go deeper. And this is kind of what I want to talk about. What is Christ oil? And
yes,
one of the cool things that I love, I learned about Christ oil years ago and the sacred secretion and the fluid that goes up and down the spinal column and what
yeah,
can happen when there's a blockage, on an emotional or a physical level.
yeah,
We need to know about this. So let's dive
yes,
into that a little bit.
yes. So I work with the cerebrospinal fluid. So this is the fluid which bathes the brain, the spinal cord, and all of the nerves. And I feel it. So I can put my hands on someone's body and feel this flow of fluid. And it has a certain rate and rhythm, range of movement, and quality of movement. I usually place my hands around the cranium, the head, but also the lower back and pelvis. So it's a fluid that can be felt by people who are trained within it. It is called the glymphatic system as well. People may have heard the lymphatic system, but not so much of the glymphatic system. But the glymphatic system is just present in the cranium, the head, and it's what cleanses the brain and keeps it healthy from us having a range of symptoms that I'll explain. So this fluid moves around the brain, down the spinal cord, and all of the nerves. and it's literally bathing the nervous system. And it's also known as the sacred secretion, the Christ oil, the breath of life. And it's like the light within us. And if it isn't flowing, if it's diminished, blocked, if it's not radiating that light, then it's diminished and it's dark and it's heavy and it results in symptoms. So when it is flowing throughout the system, that is when you have perfect health and you're balanced emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, because it is working on all of those levels, even though it's just this fluid which is bathing the nervous system. And I can put my hands on the body and feel this flow, but I can feel the blockages. And then I'm able to use my hands in such a way to guide it to flow. And it's also to do with the pituitary gland and the pineal gland and the fluid flow between those glands, and then all of the hormonal system, and it's to do with the auditory system, your memory, the vagus nerve. Everything is involved within this system. So it means that if you have a problem with the Christ oil not flowing, you could have a mental illness of some sort. You could have an addiction or an obsession, or you could have a physical problem such as chronic pain or chronic fatigue. Also, you could have hormonal issues. So for a woman, that could present as period problems or ovary related issues and pregnancy related issues. I now work a lot with mental health by promoting the flow of the Christ oil. So, what people are now starting to realize through my work is that depression, suicide ideation, and addictions come from this system being blocked, in my opinion and in my work. So, if you can unblock that, you can actually then end up treating the addiction or the obsession, and it can be life-saving. I do work with people that have made attempts on their life, and then when they
Wow.
realize that it's actually a blockage that needs releasing and their problem that they have always had can disappear, it's life-changing. Well, yeah, literally saving lives, but it's very empowering for the person to know that actually their addiction or their self-harming isn't actually their fault. It's something that's actually happened that's caused the blockage, which is often birth trauma, or is often a blow to the head, a trauma to the body, like a whiplash to the neck. And unfortunately, these physical injuries have an effect on that flow of that in that system, but it results then in a mental health issue, which people just are not aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's not even remotely talked about on a regular
No,
basis.
no.
No, not enough. And I know you were saying before too, this can cause, gut issues, vagus nerve issues. I mean, we're talking nervous system regulation.
Yes.
So one of my biggest reasons for starting this podcast was to help people bridge the gap between, spiritual and logical, all of that kind of stuff. And I work with a lot of people who are going through their awakening process or consciousness shifting, and nervous system regulation is a huge part of that. It's not easy to go from one version of yourself to another version of yourself. You have to face things like trauma and shadow work and all of that kind of stuff. And so, I'm just so curious. You said that these blockages can be caused from birth. So we could be walking around with these blockages for forever, and it's
Yes.
comes out as a diagnosis or not a diagnosis, when in all reality the spinal fluid just isn't flowing properly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
Like autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, Asperger's, these labels that these young people often are given, which in times that's helpful because they actually need a label, but other times it's not helpful to have a label because the cause of it is not being addressed. But the cause of all of those problems again is within the cerebrospinal fluid not flowing or a blockage within that lymphatic system.
Mhm.
So it's
It's so-
yeah,
it
amazing.
it's so fascinating. I was actually just talking with a client. We were talking about lymphatic massages, and I know that whenever I've had a lymphatic massage, I have an emotional release. It was something that I noticed years ago. The practitioner would be working on my stomach or would be working on my hips, where I have since learned we carry a ton of emotion. And I would just start crying on the table for no reason, or I would release tears. And she would tell me that that was normal. And I would say, I have no idea why. Memories would pop up, things would happen, and I would just have a release. I've since, of course, learned that the body keeps score. And, that comes from traumatic events in my life, obviously. But this is just so fascinating to me because what happens once the fluid is actually released? What type of success stories have you had?
Oh, immense. I mean, the biggest is that the person isn't taking their life anymore. Actually, they're
Right.
not making attempts on their life, so they're stopping self-harming. They could be stopping drinking, stopping smoking. They resolve their anxiety, their insomnia, their chronic fatigue, their pain. They're improving their relationships with other people, improving their relationship with God. Their connection generally is better. Their vision can improve. They can then sense more, see more, hear more. There's a level of comfort within the body, of just an internal peace and being able to reach joy again like that.
Mm.
I want to get up and in the morning and progress with my day rather than being so overwhelmed at the beginning of the day before they've even began.
This reminds me a lot of Kundalini energy, obviously rising of it and
Yes.
falling and
Mhm.
really activating the person. I know that when I went through my initial Kundalini awakening and my initial awakening cycle, I would be meditating. And this is kind of what I wanted to highlight because this is just such a, yeah, I always suggest people please meditate because when you take the time to really get quiet, you can really tune into that inner voice. And there's knowledge within us that we didn't even know was there. And you can discover that knowledge within minutes if you really try to just get quiet. But I remember seeing things. Obviously, I'm a clairvoyant. And so my team was trying to wake me up a little bit. And I remember seeing energy go up and down my spinal column. And they showed me oil, and then they showed me different parts of the brain, and they showed me all that. And I was being moved through a very, very serious, life altering healing phase at that particular time. Consciousness shifting, I was healing deep childhood wounds, beliefs, limited beliefs, all of that stuff. I was being guided towards purpose. And I feel like once I allowed myself to, and I feel like that's key, allow myself to open up to different modalities and heal and understand that spirit was working through me, everything changed.
Mhm.
The way I thought, the way that I perceived life, the way I perceived the world, all of it changed. Why is this called Christ oil?
Good question. Because some people would not say it's Christ oil, they would say it's sacred secretion or breath of life. But
Mm-hmm.
I say Christ oil because that resonates with me because I've been raised Catholic and Christian. So for me, it
Okay.
fits and Christ
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. But I
Mm-hmm.
have a very deep spiritual understanding rather than now being part of the church. And so Christ consciousness works for me. That's why I use the term. But if you're not necessarily Christian or haven't been raised that way, you might not use the word Christ oil, but you would then say maybe sacred secretion or breath of life. And it is like you're breathing inside, and then you feel suffocated as well if you don't have that breath inside and overwhelm,
Yeah.
which is where like the breath of life comes from. But then to someone who is structural and doesn't have any religious or spiritual belief, it would be the cerebrospinal fluid
Okay. I
in
kind
that
of just
sense.
wanted to tap in on that a little bit. I resonate very strongly with Christ consciousness. I was not raised Christian, I was raised Catholic, but uh,
Mm,
I'm more in touch with my spiritual self than I ever have. And I truly do believe uh, I love that you call it Christ oil, because Christ understood his divinity. You know, somebody who is going through an activation like that, they start to understand and have the consciousness shifts and the awareness that they are not separate from the divine. So I
Yes.
love that you call it Christ oil. But yes, the sacred secretion is what most people, I see lots of videos and stuff like that and topics on all of that. And I kind of wanted to just bridge that so that if somebody was looking for that and it wasn't titled Christ oil, they knew what they were, the
Yeah.
scientific name and everything for it.
Yes. Yes. And
Very cool.
because we have an innate ability to heal ourselves. So when the Christ or the sacred secretion then is flowing, everything and anything can put itself right because the body is a miracle. So you just then enable the body to be at its blueprints, how it's meant to be. But unfortunately, it gets injured, traumatized, blocked. But once it's released, it's like you then become Christ-like. And there isn't a separation. You don't feel the separation because there is no separation. And unfortunately, the amount of suffering people go through is the separation from Christ, separation from God. But then once the trauma and the injury is released, they're back to being Christ again, back to being with Christ and having Christ flow within. And just it's very clear when that happens because the person's life then is much easier and they're getting on with everybody easier and everyone around them is happier and more joyful. There's just a peace, a tranquility, and then business goes well for them. They start being abundant. Like everything starts to fall into place.
Like there's
Prosperity.
a frequency shift that happens.
Yes.
Yeah. And they
We
become
are creators, aren't we? We are the creator,
yes.
we're part of the creator, so therefore we should be creating. We shouldn't have any lack whatsoever. There are no obstacles in the eyes of God. So we only put those obstacles there. And that's the ego self, which is not God. And the ego is, we can even talk about that, but demonic entities and Satan, and how that comes into people's lives. Because again, it's a frequency. And not that many people feel comfortable talking about it, very happy talking about God and Christ, but not necessarily then talking about Satan and demons.
I look at all of that as, and I know that my listeners will too, and people who are going through consciousness shifts. It's a frequency. It's love versus fear. That's really all that it is.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like working in the type of area that you do and doing the type of work that you do, you're helping people raise their vibration, heal, and choose to live in alignment with love, which is Christ.
Yes.
It's heart consciousness. It's loved based energy. It's um, miracle energy.
Yeah.
It's tapping into that divine self and that sacred self and owning it and tuning into your inner wisdom, trusting that inner voice, and then going out and creating. And when you have a physical vessel that helps you do that, it's easier. You don't have it working against you, and you become a co-creator with the universe and with God and spirit and all of that.
Yes.
So to put it in simplified terms, I truly feel like it's love versus fear. When you talk to me about, um,
Yeah.
God and Satan and all of that stuff, I look at, I'm sure there's people on here who, if you look at like the tarot card, the Satan, the devil on the tarot card, it's just fear, it's ego, it's greed, it's attachment, it's codependency, it's, all of that kind of stuff. It's conditioning. It's all of the stuff that keeps you away from being your authentic, most divine, sovereign self.
Yes. That's such a beautiful explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're healing
100%.
that. that's
Yes.
that's just so powerful. And this sounds a lot like when you're going through a chakra blockage as well. I teach a lot about how the chakras need to be open and free and flowing, and when they're not, emotional issues, mental issues, physical issues definitely manifest, and it can keep us from living in alignment, or and keep us caught up in karmic cyclical cycles or patterns or out of alignment for our highest good.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I want to kind of tap into something here because I want to stay on pace here. You
Hmm.
did something. It was so cool. You did where I want to talk to you about AO scan technology.
Mm.
And you mentioned that you can work with people around the world. You did something on me that I found absolutely fascinating. It was
Mm.
very, very interesting. It works on a quantum level, right? Yeah,
Yes.
so cool.
Yeah.
And this machine helped you highlight different things that were going on with me vibrationally at the time. Would you
Yes.
like to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Yes. The company is called Solex and it's AO scan technology and it uses bioresonance. So it's quantum physics and it's incredibly accurate. So it gives us information about the cells within our bodies. So I would scan myself every morning using my voice, my height, my weight, date of birth, and a photograph. And it will scan over 250 areas in my body. And it will also scan 2000 frequencies within my voice. That will then be able to give me a report on my emotions and then the health of my organs and also the structure of my body. And it's designed to give us information, not necessarily a diagnosis, but you can follow patterns then within those scan results. So I will then notice when I'm scanning regularly, if something keeps on cropping up, then I know there would be an issue in that area. It's very sensitive in the moment that the scan is running, and all of it's done remotely, just with those few details. And I am using it also on animals. So I've used it on calves, cows, dogs, and horses. And the results with it are incredible. That it's so accurate and it's mind blowing how accurate it could be. It picks up on people wherever they are in the world and gives a pretty accurate description of them in that moment of time and what they're suffering with. Like, just amazing.
Yeah, and it goes off of your voice. So I'm feeling like this is important. It's
Yeah.
tuning into your frequency and it's going,
Yes.
oh, hey, based on this frequency, we see these particular issues that could be popping up.
And
That's
10 seconds
powerful.
of voice. Yeah. It only needs 10 seconds. And not even that. I've worked with people that are very poorly and can only give a grunt or they can't speak. So it's a sound with non-verbal children. But all the technology needs is some sort of sound to be able to run that part of the scan. There are different parts that I can use which don't need to use the voice. I can scan people remotely without that. So it doesn't have to be a limitation. But you just get, if you can have a voice recording, then you can find out more information, particularly around the emotions. But it's like every single cell in the body is a frequency and it's measuring the frequency of every cell, or it's certainly over 250 areas within the body. And it's it's picking up on that vibration within those cells.
Mhm.
And the accuracy
Yeah,
of it,
I was
if
shocked. When I got my report, I was like, wow, you picked up on chronic pain that I have experienced. I am a chronic pain sufferer. And you picked up on different types of foods that I knew were already triggers for me, but it was crazy to see it come out in the report. You picked up on different areas around my mental health at that particular time. I remember being shocked. I'd been a little bit stressed over different business things that I'm growing in my purpose. And it all came out on a report. And I just looked at it and I went, I already knew it was there, but to see it on a physical report was just wow.
yeah,
And
it's
obviously we're
wow
on
factor.
completely different sides of the world.
Yes.
Again, another lesson in that separation is an illusion. And that's a big part of what I feel like my mission is here to teach. And the next evolution of my mission is to teach and show people, as a medium, there's always so much skepticism around it. Of course, naturally, I encourage people, you should be skeptic, trust your inner voice and use your discernment. But I definitely feel like a part of my job, not only individually, but even with this podcast, is to bridge that gap and teach the collective that we are all one and we are not separate from each other or God. We are all one and we are all one consciousness working together. And the more that we see that and we trust in the fact that we are not separate from the divine, the easier it is going to be to own our power and to take our
Yes.
power back. And that can be very challenging because religion, society, conditions, upbringing teaches you to look outside of yourself for everything. It conditions you to look outside of yourself for the answers. When I'm going to be very bold here and say that, we are a child of God. Why would we not have the same type of abilities to
Mm-hmm.
co-create miracles in our life? And
Mm-hmm.
why would we not have the same type of gifts? And that's very challenging because that pushes people to look at themselves and not give their power away.
Jesus said we are and can be better than him.
It's powerful. It's really
Yes.
powerful. So in
So we,
alignment with everything that I've been recently working on. And there's a massive, we talk about this second coming that's happening, this awakening that's happening. And, you look at the state of the world and it's absolute chaos right now. United
mm,
States, it's absolute chaos in so many different ways. Every country is dealing with their own thing. And I look at this and I go, in simplified terms, it's love versus fear. It's spiritual warfare.
it is spiritual
And
warfare.
mhm,
Mm.
yep, tenfold. And we're awakening to that more and more. And I feel like people go, well, what are the solutions? Love yourself more, honor yourself more, trust your intuition more. Make sure that you're choosing to dwell on the vibration of love versus fear more. That's very challenging on this planet. But it sounds like, in addition to other modalities, this is a beautiful modality for people to be able to heal from
And
or
everything
with.
you just said, that is how you honor your Christ oil. It's how you raise the sacred secretion, everything that you've just said. So we can do it ourselves. We can live that life, and we can, if we live more like Christ and we honor ourselves, honor our body like a temple, and honor everybody around us, and vibrate that love energy. And that is how we will help to unblock these restrictions that we have and these torsion patterns in the body, because it is through acts of kindness and gratitude and love for others and honoring, praising God or nature and
Mhm.
spending time in nature. But it's, yes, if you can do acts of kindness, it's makes such a difference to yourself and to other people. But simple daily exercises that can achieve so much for ourselves and for one another around us. Yeah.
Speaking of exercises, to wrap all of this up, I feel like we could talk about this for hours, getting into a conversation about Christ consciousness. You could really go down the rabbit hole, but to simplify it, it really is about choosing to live in alignment with love over fear. And then,
Yeah.
training your body instrument to be doing the same. What
Yes.
type of exercises or what do you want to wrap up here with? Is there anything you can teach our audience, or is there a quote or some kind of something that can help people just kind of get to the next level? Sometimes people who are listening to this are just starting, then there's other people who are advancing drastically on the spiritual path. What would you have to say?
I would say taking your shoes and socks off and standing on the ground. Like earthing is so important, the connection with Mother Earth. And if you can stand by a tree or hug a tree and hear the birds and smell the trees, and if you can be by running water is even better, a combination of that. But if you don't have that, then you can just take your shoes and socks off and be on the ground, on even if it was tarmac. At least you're connecting and you are enabling yourself to discharge some of the electromagnetic radiation and this charge that we have on us. We have to discharge the excess of that. So I would say grounding is so important. Minimum, I
Mm-hmm.
would say 15 minutes, ideally around 45 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
then humming. Humming is so good. And it doesn't matter what you hum, but just the action of humming. And this stimulates the vagus nerve. And so does chanting. Or you could be saying psalm or prayers, but it's when you breathe, when you speak or breathe outwards for a long breath rather than short breaths. It's the breathing aspect which then enables the vagus nerve to be working and to keep us in parasympathetic. So deep belly breathing, part of that. Hydration. You need to be hydrated. So important to be drinking and the purest, cleanest of water. And using maybe Celtic salt, because that enables the cells to hydrate better if you have Celtic salt, either before or with the water. If you dissolve Celtic salt on your tongue and then drink water, it will hydrate you better. And the cerebrospinal fluid, it needs hydration. And sleep. That's the last thing I would say. Sleep hygiene is so important. We need about 7 to 8 hours sleep at night. Ideally, we would be asleep by 10:30 at night, 10:30, and we would sleep solidly then for around 7 hours. That is the opportunity that we have for our brain to keep itself clean. The glymphatic system works in the first 3 cycles of sleep. So it's really important that we have good quality sleep.
Mm-hmm. Huge. I've realized that more now. I think just like everyone does, as you get older, I have to have my sleep.
Yes.
It changes everything about my day if I haven't slept well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one last thing, a prayer. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Oh,
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
powerful and it's so easy for people to do and it can transform people's lives. I've had so many of my patients use it over the years and tell me how it has changed them and changed the people around them. And it's really
Yeah.
simple to do. So I am sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Yeah. Yep. I learned that years ago. That was pretty powerful for me as well during my
Yeah.
initial awakening, to really, it's almost like, when you know better, then you can do better, but give yourself the opportunity to let go of, the past. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Powerful. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like we could be talking all day, but I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Where can we find you?
Healingwithmichelledavies.com.
Perfect. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and we will talk soon.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Divine Soul Journey Evolved. I'm truly grateful to share this space with you. If you'd like to dive deeper, please visit divinesouljourney.net to check out private readings, courses, mastermind workshops, and so much more. Also, just a reminder to check out the links below for any free gifts mentioned during this program that are available to you as you grow through your next level up. Until next time, keep honoring the illogical magic unfolding before you. Trust in your perfectly designed evolution, and remember that you are being divinely guided always.